In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 pitches that you need to be successful. But first, we got to fly to New Jersey. Let's go. To New Jersey, and I'm here with Justin and Robert, and in this video we're going to talk about the 3 pitches that you need to get to the next level. You all right, Coach Tony?
Ow.
First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that came out and supported in New Jersey. Man, I felt so much love out there, you know, for the team that was playing, that said what's up in between innings. I hope you guys came back and won. So all the kids out there that came out for the USSSA All American games, and showcase what you got, put it out there all on the table, left it out on the line. I appreciate all you guys who came from me, the You Go Pro family. It was great to see all you guys and take pictures, and I had a lot of fun meeting all you and hearing all your stories, so thank you very much. But let's talk about these 3 pitches. Actually, it's going to be a lot more than 3 pitches. It's 3 types of pitches that I want to talk about today. 1 being the fastball, 2 being a changeup, and 3 being a breaking ball. And we're going to talk about different variations of those 3 types of pitches as we go along. So first of all, we're going to talk about the fastball, because the fastball is obviously the most important. That's your typical pitch, right? And I'm going to talk about the 4-seam, the 2-seam, and the sinker, right, in this part. I'm not going to touch too much on the 4-seam and the 2-seam because most of you guys have a good understanding of how to throw that. You've probably thrown it before, but we'll touch on it just a little bit. Maybe you'll learn something new. I don't know. So for the 4-seam, obviously you want to grip the ball right here across the laces. Some guys like to have the horseshoe on this side, or some guys like to have the horseshoe on the other side. Just play with it. You might get a little extra cut or a little bit of arm side movement depending on the side of the ball that you grip the ball. Just pay attention on all of these pitches that we're going to talk about. Pay attention to a couple of things. The grip pressure that you have, like how deep you are in your grip, your thumb placement, and obviously your finger placement, your grip on the ball. But really pay attention to that, because you can make the same grip on the ball differently depending on, you know, how deep you are, how loose you are, depending on where you're gripping the ball. And thumb placement is huge when you're throwing pitches, right? So mess around with your thumb placement on different pitches to see what happens to the ball when you grip it like that. So obviously that's your 4-seam. 2-seam right here across the laces. Some guys like to be you know, on top of the lace. Some guys like to be together. Whatever it is, whatever feels comfortable to you. Again, thumb placement is pretty important when throwing any type of pitch. So play around with that, and the depth or the grip pressure, I would say, on how you're holding that ball. For the 2-seam, all you're really trying to do is turn your hand in at release a little bit, pronate a little bit earlier, and turn it in at release, so then the ball is going to move arm side. Okay, now the sinker is my favorite. I know if you've been watching my channel for any time, you know that I'm a sinker ball guy, and I believe that the sinker is what changed my career. It's what got me into pro baseball. When I learned the sinker, I became a new pitcher, and I think the sinker is a great pitch. I've made many videos on the sinker, but I think anybody should try it. Everybody should try it, because it's safe on your arm, no matter how old you are, or if you got a young pitcher. If you're watching the video, you're going to share it with him. No matter how old you are, it's a safe pitch. In my opinion, it's safer than the typical fastball, because you're pronating more. Basically, for the sinker, all you're doing, and by the way, pronating just helps promote proper deceleration, so you're actually taking more stress on your arm. Guys who get around the ball at release point, those are the guys who usually have elbow issues, sometimes shoulder issues. So if you're good at pronating or pronation through the ball, you're going to have less of a chance of having those injuries. So it's a fastball. It's a version of a fastball. You're not trying to throw it slower. I threw it at max effort. I was able to throw a sinker at 96 miles an hour at my fastest. I used to go totally together with my fingers right here, and I'm on this lace. You know, I've got fat fingers, so it looks like I'm on both laces, but I'm trying to hook on my pointer finger right here. Boom. Middle finger right next to it. Thumb underneath my pointer finger. So I'm not on this side of the ball. I'm underneath here. As far as grip pressure goes, I'm pretty deep, right? You don't see a whole lot of space in between there. You hear some coaches say, hold it like an egg, hold it real loose. That never worked for me. I wanted to get a good grip. I wasn't choking it. I wasn't like, but I did have a very firm grip on there, okay? And then all you want to do is very similar to the two-seam. So if you throw a two-seam already, you might want to play around with the sinker because it's a very great pitch. The only difference in the two-seam and the sinker is the sinker you want to try to get more downward movement. The two-seam you're typically getting more arm side movement. It's really the same pitch. You grip it the same way. Again, some guys will grip it here. I gripped it together, just like the two-seam, right? The only difference is you're trying to get more on top of the ball so you get that downward movement versus that side-to-side movement, okay? So when I came over, I was a little bit lower arm slot. When I came over, I would try to rip right over top of the laces as I released the ball, right here. Kind of rip over top of it. And then on a good one, what I would see sometimes is like it almost looked like one lace spinning. Like when the ball was spinning, you would see like one diagonal lace spinning. And when I got that spin on the ball, that's when it just caught and went real late. Now that's another thing you want to work on when you're trying to throw the sinker is downward movement, but also late downward movement, right? The later you can get that movement, the better, because you want the hitter to make it seem like a fastball, it's like a flat four seam's coming, and then change the plane, right? You're trying to change the plane. That's why depth is, in my opinion, better than side-to-side movement, because if a batter is swinging on one plane and then the ball changes planes, it's a lot harder for him to adjust mid-swing and try to hit that ball. That's why a lot of sinker ball guys get ground balls, because it moves planes and the batter hits on top of the ball, or they swing and miss. When I first started throwing this pitch, I was surprised at how much guys would swing and miss. I would see them swing and they would be nowhere near the ball, and I was just like, what? Like, it was like a trick. I almost felt like I was cheating. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So once I saw that a couple times after throwing it, obviously it became my pitch. And I threw that pitch. I learned in my junior year of college at Auburn University, and I struggled with accuracy with it that year. I also had an issue with my eye. I don't really talk about it too much on the channel, but I couldn't see. I scratched my cornea when I was sleeping one night. I couldn't see out of it, so my vision was messed up. I think that's probably what played a big part in why I was bad with my accuracy my first year. But my second year, my senior year, when I got feeling better with my eye and everything else, and I found the control, found the command, found the consistency with the sinker, I dominated. I led the nation in ERA. I led the nation in holds. I think I still have the record for holds, or appearances in college baseball. I pretty much pitched every single game in the regular season and the playoffs. I don't know, it was something crazy. I think this record still stands. Set all kinds of records that year, and I only threw a sinker. I started throwing a slider the last 2 weeks of the season because one of the scouts came up to me and said, "Hey, we want to draft you, but you only throw one pitch. How come you don't throw, another pitch?" I said, "Well, they can't hit my sinker." He was like, "That's a great point, but how about you throw a slider or something so that, I can, when we're talking about drafting you, we can get you, I can say, hey, he's got a good slider too, or whatever." So I started throwing a slider the last 2 weeks of the season, and it ended up being a great pitch for me. Actually, I had the #1 ranked slider in the whole San Diego Padres organization that next year, or 2 years after that. So it ended up being a great pitch for me, which we're going to talk about the slider next. But the sinker is just a great, great pitch. Again, I recommend anyone to try it out because it could be such a useful tool and helping you get batters out, whether it be with ground balls or as a swing and miss pitch. But it is a great, great pitch to add to your pitching arsenal. With that being said, let's talk about changeups now. We'll get into the slider in the breaking ball category, but the changeup is a very important pitch because as a pitcher, our whole job is to disrupt batters' timing and balance. How do we disrupt their timing? We throw fast pitches and we throw slow pitches, right? So if we have a fastball and a slow ball, a changeup, then we're able to do our job, right? Because if we can throw a fastball and then change their speed, mess up their timing, change the speed of the pitch, mess up their timing, they're going to be off. Timing, hitting has a lot to do with timing. If you have good timing, you're going to be a decent hitter, right? If you don't have good timing, it's very hard to hit the ball. You could have the prettiest swing in the world, but if you don't have good timing, you can't time the pitches up, good luck, right? As a pitcher, we're trying to disrupt that timing, right? And if we have a changeup off of our fastball, especially if it looks deceptive, if it looks like a fastball is coming and then it is slower, then we're gonna, that's half of the job of pitching. That's disrupting the timing, right? Balance, to disrupt balance, we got to throw in, we got to throw out, we got to throw up, we got to throw down. That's how we disrupt balance, right? So now think about this. You could throw a fastball up and in, and then a changeup low and away, right? So now you've messed up the timing because you threw a fastball and then a changeup, but you also messed up their balance because you threw a fastball up and in. Do you think that guy's really going to dig in that next pitch and be ready to get that low and outside pitch? Heck no. You just almost hit him, right? He's like, oh man, I hope he doesn't hit me again. He's not going to be digging in, ready, balanced, under control to hit that low and outside pitch. So that is why that's so important, disrupting the balance, right? Timing and balance. When you can do that as a pitcher, man, you are going to be successful. So we need a changeup to do that. So one of the changeups that you could throw is a circle changeup, right? So I like to grip the ball right here on this lace with my middle finger, ring finger right here on this lace, pinky comfortable, pointer finger tucked down a little bit, comfortable, thumb right underneath the middle finger. You can see I've got a little more space in here on this one. So for me on the changeup, I was a little bit looser. It was more fingertips. Like I could take my thumb off and you can see it's sitting in my fingers, not in my palm, right? So all I would want to do on this is make it very similar to my fastball. So my fastball was a sinker for the most part. I did throw a four seam. I used to throw a four seam up and in to lefties early to get them off the plate, just like we talked about, to mess up their balance because I struggled with lefties. So, but for the most part, I'd say I only threw the four seam maybe 2% of the time, 3% maybe of the time. But the other percent of the time I was throwing sinker sliders. Later in my career, I added a forkball. So when I threw the changeup, the circle changeup, and I didn't throw it often in pro ball at all. I threw it a little bit in college. But when I threw it, I wanted it to make it look like my sinker. So I wanted to come here and rip over top of it just the same. The only difference was the grip. And then I try to get it over top a little bit more off of the fingers. That would take the speed off. It would look like my sinker. And then I'd try to get it to 10 mile an hour, 13 mile an hour difference, but still look deceptive, still look like the sinker was coming. So that's the circle changeup. I did play around with the Vulcan changeup in pro ball. So the Vulcan is like a split finger, except you're splitting it with your middle and your ring finger right here. And then I would just try to come through that ball. Sometimes I would pull it to the middle finger side. Sometimes I would pull it to the ring finger side. If I pulled it to the middle finger side, it would have a little wobble and an arm side down depth movement, down and away movement. If I pulled to the ring finger a little bit, I would have a little wobble and like a cut action downward movement. So you could play with this. I would turn it in, over exaggerate the pronation sometimes and get a little bit of spin to it. So this was a good changeup to me. I used this for a year in professional baseball. Wasn't super successful with it, but definitely better than the circle changeup. For me, the circle changeup was just a hard pitch to grip, and that's another thing to take into account when you're messing around with different pitches. You're not going to throw every single pitch that I'm telling you right now, right? Some guys are going to get some pitches, some guys are not going to be able to find the other pitches. It's all about feel. Play around with them, mess around with them, see what feels good, and then stick with one. If you find one that's working and it feels like it's good, keep practicing it so then then it can stick into your arsenal. I went through many different pitches in my career, but I finished my professional career as a four seam. Very rarely threw the four seam except up and in the lefties. Sinker, threw it a lot. Slider, threw it a lot. And then forkball, threw it every once in a while. So I ended my career with those four pitches. So just play around with it. Every guy is different, right? Every pitcher has different pitches. So that's the Vulcan. The forkball that I was throwing, I would just split right here, and you could kind of classify this as a changeup because it changes speed. Now I don't recommend everybody throw this, but for me, late in my career as a professional baseball player, it was something that I needed to add in to help me get the lefties out because I could dominate the righties with my sinker and slider. I had troubles with the lefties. That's why I got that four seam up and in, and then this helped me later in the count to strike them out as a swing and miss pitch. So I would just come straight through with this and try to get like a knuckle effect. Sometimes you could pull down with the pointer finger, pull down with the middle finger and get different movement on it. So play with that. Thumb pressure was very light. Sometimes I would even take the thumb off. It's a slip pitch. So you're throwing it and it's slipping out. A lot of times it'll knuckle. All right. Now let's get to the breaking ball category. So now you've got a fast pitch and a slow pitch, right? Now your slow pitch typically is going to move. You typically want it to move down and arm side, right? For me, that's what I wanted to do on my changeup pitch. So when I was throwing my forkball, most of the time I was trying, or the Vulcan, I was trying to get it to go down and arm side. So I've got the fastball down and arm side, I've got the fastball straight, and then I've got the changeup, the Vulcan or the forkball down and arm side as well, looking like the fastball that I throw most often, which was my sinker. Because we want it to be deceptive, right? Want it to be deceptive and have depth. Remember those two D's, deceptiveness and depth. So when you have that, now if you can add in another pitch that comes out of that same slot, out of that same tunnel, right? Coming out of that same tunnel, but now moves the opposite way. So now you've got the fastball, change up, and slider. Well, for me, it was slider. We'll talk about a couple different pitches, but you got them coming out of the same tunnel and then going opposite ways. Now you're becoming a lot tougher to hit, right? Because if you're coming out of that same tunnel and it's looking like the same pitch is coming, and now you have 3 different or 4 different variables from there, you become unpredictable to the hitter, and you can mess up their timing and balance, and then you become a very successful hitter, or pitcher, excuse me. Pitchers are good hitters too. If you didn't know, pitchers are the best athletes on the field. If you agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you disagree with that, you're probably a position player. Go ahead and hit the thumbs down. Let's see how many guys we got watching this video right here. Thumbs up if you believe pitchers are the best athletes on the field. Thumbs down if I am lying. Let me know. All right, so for the breaking balls, I threw a slider, okay? For my slider, I was right here. Middle finger up in the horseshoe, okay? Pointer finger right next to it. Thumb kind of slanted in line with that lace and the middle finger, okay? Pretty deep on the grip. And I would come through, and I actually threw, technically, it was more of a slurve. You can call it whatever you want. It's your pitch, right? But I threw technically more of a slurve, and I would kind of rip through on the angle that I wanted it to break. So again, I'm trying to get more downward angle. For me, it was an exact mirror pitch of my my sinker or my forkball or changeup, or excuse me, my Vulcan, right? So I just wanted it to go the opposite way. So I would rip right on that angle in which I wanted it to break, okay? Now you could throw the same pitch coming through, fastball, and turn it like a doorknob at the end. Some guys have success with that. I never did. I threw more of a slurve ball. Now another variation of the breaking ball is a traditional curveball. You could be a 12-6 guy. You could be just a traditional curve. You can be a slurve guy like me. Again, you could be that late slider guy or that doorknob slider guy. I wouldn't put cutter in the breaking ball category. I'd put cutter in the fastball category because you're throwing it like a fastball and it's cutting across, right? But still similar, and you can kind of go around the clock as far as that is concerned. You know, 12-6, then you got the traditional, then you got the slurve, then you got the slider, then you got the doorknob slider and the cutter, right? So that's the kind of way I progress the breaking balls, even though the cutter is not technically a breaking ball. But those are different breaking balls. For me, I was always right here. Some guys will hold the curveball on the other side of the horseshoe, right? Some guys do like a spike. They'll spike this finger and throw the horseshoe. Even if it's on the other side of the horseshoe, they'll spike this finger. You know, some guys are just one finger. Curveball guys, you know, the grip really doesn't matter a whole lot. It's a matter of how you're throwing that ball, your wrist angle at release point, and how you're getting through that ball, the spin that you're putting on through the ball. The grip can help you with that, but more importantly, it's the wrist angle and the spin that you're getting on the ball, because the spin that you're getting on the ball is what's going to make it move the certain way, right? So that's the most important thing. So I hope that helps. If you got any questions about any different pitches, let me know. Just remember, your whole job as a pitcher is to disrupt the batter's timing and balance. And if you have a couple different pitches that you can control, you're going to be able to do that. Typically, we need a fast one, a slow one, and then if you get to the point, you need one that's going to move the opposite way. So those are some grips that you can mess around with. Again, mess around with them, see what works for you, because not every pitch is going to work for you. Some guys, you know, typically guys who have a good arm side movement pitch or struggle with like a cutter. Guys who have a great cutter typically struggle with like a sinker. So depending on what works for you naturally, stick with that, practice them, get better with them, and add them to your pitching arsenal. Guys, I hope you guys like this video. Please, subscribe if you have not subscribed, because I got a bunch more stuff coming. And let me know in the comments below, what do you want to see next? And I'll make a video about it. So I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.